Hey, y'all, we have a special episode for you today. This is from the International Lounge podcast. And first of all, I love finding sister podcasts like this. They cover incredible stories from every country in the world. And this podcast is so good. I've already been binging their catalog. I love their episode on Palestine. I'm actually going to share that also at a different time. And the reason I love this podcast is because it's always a really, really good interview. They have a bunch of actors or comedians come on, and they are telling really in-depth history from every country in the world, just like us. But when I say in depth, I mean in depth. These guys are doing God's work when it comes to history that I could never do. Research that don't have time for, frankly. So this is such a great podcast to pair with ours, because if you ever want to go a little bit more in depth with another country and have a good time, this is a great show. So I'm super glad they reached out to me for this collaboration, and I know y'all are going to have a good time. So let's learn about Syria. Enjoy.
All listeners prepare for boarding. This is International Lounge.
Welcome to International Lounge. This is Captain Abdu speaking with airport beekeeper Andres. This is your passport to world culture. We explore history, music, film, food, and tales from travelers. So put your tray tables down, because it's going to be a smooth ride. And today, we are crazy excited for our first class passenger,
So stoked.
Mr. Syria himself, Laith Nakli. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. The
All
pressure.
right. Super excited to have you here.
We're really so thrilled.
I'm very excited to be here, man.
So for our audience, Laith is a British actor, writer, producer, and bodybuilder of Syrian descent. Known for his role as Uncle Nassim on Rami, as well as roles on Miss Marvel, more recently in Problemista, Amira and Sam, which I saw, 2014. And you were actually, you were on Third Watch?
Oh my God! I have a story about that.
Really? Interesting.
I have a very cool story.
Oh,
that
really?
I've told a few people, but you'll like it.
My dad was an extra on Third Watch. He got stabbed.
He did.
So his character, I guess, he had no role. He was already dead.
Wow.
Your dad played a lot of cadavers on
He was like a
Law
shop
and Order.
owner. Basically, he was like an Arab shop owner, gets stabbed, and they have to save
Well, it's
him.
either shop owner, cab driver, or terrorist. So that's those were the choices. So yeah, I mean, do you want me to tell you the story?
Please,
Please do.
Yeah. So I think as of 8-9 years ago, there was a chunk of time, maybe starting 12 years ago, where I stopped taking. I didn't want to play any terrorist roles or any stuff like that. And then there was pressure on me, like, listen, you keep on saying no, nobody's going to hire you. So then there came one role after like about 8 years ago, maybe 9, and I did it, and I was hurting every time. I did 24. And it was hurting me. Every morsel of my being was hurting doing it. But I needed the money. I needed the credits. And it actually did help because it built all my credits. I had a big recurring role and all that stuff. So, and after that, since that day, I have not. And I've, lost a lot of money for refusing to take jobs. My agents are very supportive. They say no for me, anyway. But and I'm not saying that people shouldn't do that. If you're an actor starting out, you got to do what you have to do.
Yeah,
you can't say no. You're not in a position to say no. You want to get into the union. You want to make money. You want to build credits. And I got out of drama school in 2003. My first audition, literally my first audition, was for Third Watch. And I went in and I got the part. It was 2 episodes. And I worked 3 weeks. I made really good money. I was pampered and spoiled. It was great. I had a great time. I know there was a lot of action in it until I died. Horrible bloody death. Spitting blood all over. Radiation burns all over. But I had one line, and my line was, and they wanted me to scream it because they wanted to end the first episode. They did it so dramatically. I'm like, I'm in an interrogation room, and they go like, Allahu Akbar, until my last breath. And this is great. That's great. That's amazing. We're going to end the episode with this. We're going to have the camera come out. And they did. They did that. And we had a screening party with my friends, and we like 40 people watching it. And, we're excited. It's your first job, union job, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But, as time goes by, you start learning, you start having a voice, you build, and it starts, you know, you have to use that voice. You know, you have to make decisions, and they're not tough decisions; they're easy decisions. But the story about that, how everything, I believe everything, you know, makes a full circle in life, or a 180, whatever you know the right term is. But I remember when I got on Miss Marvel. When I got on Miss Marvel, then I got to a time where it started bothering me. Like, oh man, Allahu Akbar, man. I hope no one ever sees that. And then I got on Miss Marvel, and my first day of shooting, and if you remember the scene, the second episode, they introduce the mosque, and you see everyone praying, and you hear a voice. I don't know if you remember it. You hear a voice, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allah. And the way it embodied its full meaning.
You got to take it back.
It embodied, and I took it back. And it was so beautiful. And I'm like, okay, that's out of my system. So
all right.
That's my story for that.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. Vindication in a way.
Yes.
That's awesome.
I love that. I love that. That's amazing. Well, so today, our destination, we're on the road to Damascus.
I love that.
We're going to Syria.
Yes.
Okay. So we're going to kick off our first segment, a brief time of history. So we're going to go back to the ancient past.
We're going
really super far back. So like really like the earliest civilizations, there's like the Natufian civilization in 12,000 BC. And then like 3,500, 2,900, you have like the Ebla and the Mari.
we're not going to spend any time on the 12,000 BC
I mean, you know, there's a lot of, you know.
There's so much stuff here.
You just want to make me look dumb. Go ahead.
No. This is the obligatory ancient, like, you know, we have to, on the Germany episode, I had to talk about Neanderthal.
Yeah.
But so like, okay, basically the idea is that there's like all these like city states that are rising up in this time period. You have the Ebla, you have the Mari, they're like feuding with each other, having like 100-year war. Then you have like the Akkadians. And then the Amorites. Amorites, this is like around 2000 BC. Like they're a big hit in the Bible because I guess they were like giants.
It's such a weird echo of propaganda.
I guess so.
It's a myth. It's just
Are Syrians particularly tall? I don't know.
I don't know. I never really like took the time to like do a.
I mean, like, compared to what 2,000 Hittites,
probably
2,000 BC Hittites. They might have been. Seems insane that that's even a thing. Again, it's just clearly, you know, I always caution against using a modern lens to investigate history because there are foreseeable traps with that. But at the same time, I always try to remember when I'm reading about histories, especially things that sound like insane, to remember that human beings pretty much haven't changed in their behavior or the way their brain works or whatever for thousands and thousands of years. So I can imagine being the kind of idiot who panics and does something nuts, and then by accident that echoes through history. And then 2,000 years later, somebody with an opinion writes something about it. And then another 2,000 years later, somebody interprets that. You know, it's a weird game of telephone and accidents predicated by
we're going to put it to rest today on this show. Average size.
I think they were just normal size.
Okay.
Well, I mean, we did, when I was a kid, we did have a very tall basketball team. So.
Okay.
We did.
Ooh.
So.
Fuck everything I said.
Okay.
Syrians are here.
We're going to do some excavations. All right. Dig up some bones. All right. Okay. So then, you know, Egypt rolls around like around 1520 BC. And basically it's like this, the area of modern day Syria, this is essentially at the time like a battleground between Egypt and the Hittites. So they're constantly battling like all the time. The Mitanni Empire kind of arises as this sort of buffer between the two empires. Eventually they become part of the Hittites. Okay. Then like, you know, there's this constant ebb and flow of empires rising, empires falling. Now, my understanding, you grew up in the UK.
Up until I was 10.
Until you were 10, and then you moved to Syria when you were 10. Was like the ancient history like a part of the curriculum, like in Syria?
Well, I mean, I experienced it firsthand because when I moved, first off, I didn't speak Arabic, and we stayed for the first 2 years. We stayed in my grandmother's house in the old city.
Yeah.
So I was in the middle of history.
This is in Damascus?
Wow. Damascus.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the, one of the oldest civilizations in the world.
Yeah.
So, and this house was like 600-700 years old.
Yeah.
And,
Wow.
and we were living in that house for 2 years, and I was very emotionally attached to the point where me and my sisters, were so upset when one of our cousins, sold it behind our backs because we wanted to buy it and to preserve it, And so I was living in the middle of it, like people still walking around, dressing, wearing the sharwal and, very traditional stuff, the guy with the donkey moving the garbage, the carriage. So all this stuff this is all history, and the ancient houses. I mean, it's just stunning. They're stunning. And I'm so happy to hear that really with the war, it was, it kept intact,
Yeah. And like Damascus, I think is actually one of the oldest cities in the world.
It is.
If not the oldest.
I mean, I think the oldest, the first church in the world. I don't want to, I think is also in Damascus, and I forgot the
you're
name.
right because I actually looked this up.
Yeah,
I looked up what is the oldest.
And it's in Syria, and I've been there, and I've I have pictures of it too. I can send pictures.
Cool.
I remember doing a little scratching on this and finding out that the when people contest what's the oldest city or whatever, Damascus has always been an active city. There's never been a time that Damascus wasn't populated. So it's never been abandoned. So it's not like a city that was a city, then disappeared, then reclaimed or whatever. It's literally always had people in it.
All the top merchants were from Damascus. All they would travel. Everyone would buy from Damascus. I mean, that's how our name came about because somewhere down the line, way back, great grandfather. He was a merchant, and he used to travel from Damascus to other countries and deliver goods and everything. And they called him the Nakli. The Nakli means the guy who transports. So that's how the name came about.
Cool. It's like English names like Miller. He ran the mill. Thatcher. He did the thatching. Nakli. He's a merchant.
That's awesome.
That's so cool.
And this goes Damascus, you're right. Like Damascus, basically stayed intact. Like there's so many cities, like when you look at there's a lot of cities that begin with the word Tel Amarna or Tel because they were just building over mounds of older cities.
Right.
But Damascus didn't skip a beat. It just kept going throughout history.
Have you been?
Amazing. No.
Oh man, it's like you go the old city. The only thing I miss besides family is the culture and the old city. I really if I can go there for a week, stay in the old city, I will stay within the 7 gates. I will just go from gate to gate because the gates are, they're wonders, and the markets and the people and the things, is just, and you feel like that has not changed as bad as everyone's doing, as poor as they are. Yeah. Nothing has changed as far as hospitality and the love for life, you know what I mean? And that's one thing. They're very resilient. And I love the old city. I used to go there, even when we moved and everything, whenever I would go, I studied 3 years in the university. I studied math. And when I had the month before my test to study, I would just go to my grandmother, live with my grandmother, even after she passed, I would stay there in this house that had 11 rooms, and the kitchen is as big as this whole probably first floor. You know what I mean? And I would just, it was me and wildlife. There was snakes and there was scorpions. It was I loved it, and it was so beautiful.
What's amazing is that you learned Arabic at age 10.
It was very difficult. It was
challenging.
It was actually it was a challenge. It was a nightmare. It was difficult. I wouldn't. It was, I don't, when I talk about things, I don't want to say it's negative or positive because, you can't judge other cultures or how they do things the way they do and make it a negative thing because we're different here, Right. But, schools over there are tougher than here, really much tougher than here. And my parents put me in a summer school, an Islamic school, the summer school. It was very tough because, first time in my life I experienced a teacher hitting you. I've never experienced that, and because I couldn't speak, and they would get mad at me, and all the government schools wouldn't accept me because I didn't speak English. And then there was one Orthodox school, Aseel, and they took me in.
Oh, wow.
And for 2 years I was there. When there would be an Arabic assignment, they said just write in English. And I was like the prized student in the school. Everyone loved me and cared for me, and but it was still tough because a lot of people would make fun of my accent. So it's all these things that later on you think about, like oh my God, that was horrible, But I learned, I think up until I was 13 or 14, it took me about 4 years to speak without to sound like a native.
Yeah.
It was very difficult. And the Syrian accent, forget about it. It's so difficult. It's so from Damascus, we have a very distinct accent. And it was hard, but I learned it.
Wow. That's impressive.
And I learned it. But I was so mad at my dad for leaving England that I told him I will never speak English again in the house. Because he said, you got to speak English in the house with your sisters, so we maintain the language. And I was so upset, because I was 10 when I left. I wasn't 5 like my sisters, And I never did. I really didn't. And I, basically by the time I came here with my British passport, my English was very poor. Very poor, but I picked it up, fast.
Wow.
Yeah.
No, that's impressive.
At 10 years old, no matter where you go in the world, 10-year-old kids are not kind to the new kid.
Yeah.
And I can only imagine the extra level of anxiety that comes with it.
And learning a language at 10, they say, the science is debatable, but in terms of language acquisition, after the age of 7, just kind of drops off exponentially. So it's just so hard to even learn a new language at that age.
You want to know the first word I learned?
Yeah.
Are we allowed to
say it?
Say it all. It doesn't matter.
The first word I learned was pussy.
Oh yeah.
And how it came about. I went up to my my grandfather. He was 100 years old. He was the elder in the family.
Right.
And I said, "Give me a kiss, granddad." And he slapped me. He didn't speak English.
Yeah.
And it turns out that kiss in Arabic means vagina or pussy. And that was my first word. He didn't speak. He thought I was being dirty. That's one thing you can't do over there. Over here, you get away. You don't over here. You can, it's part of the colloquial norm. You're sitting with your family. You say F this, F that. You can't do that over there. You can't say, you can't say shit. You can't say, you can't.
All right, let that be a lesson to travelers out there. Don't ask for kisses.
Just watch it around grandpa.
All right. Okay. So speaking of language,
yes,
right. The Ugarit people in 1450.
Oh, we are flying through this.
We're not. Basically, it's the birthplace of one of the first alphabets in the Ugarit city, the city state, and that's a precursor to the Phoenician language and the Phoenician alphabet. So, and then later on, the Aramaeans, 1200 BC, they bring the Aramaic language, and then that spreads throughout the region. So that becomes a dominant language. And they're sort of settled in the Aleppo region.
Aramaic was huge.
It was all the rage.
Aramaic was awesome.
I think Aleppo and up north too, in the northern territories. No,
I think so. I believe. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
Are there do you know of any are there in terms of known Aramaic words that made their way into modern Syrian Arabic?
Oh my God.
I don't know. I always think about that. In some,
I'm sure.
when there's different dialects, there's some words. For example, in Egypt, in Egyptian Arabic, there's some words that are just ancient Egyptian words that made their way.
I'm sure there are.
Yeah.
I was terrible in school in Arabic. I'm terrible in history. I was terrible in everything because
you're pretty good at math.
Yeah,
I was good at math. Actually, I was. I was very instinctively good, but not now.
Yeah,
everybody's
got their thing.
Yeah. But
well, you're obviously good at learning languages because that's a very hard thing to do.
That's no slouch.
I struggle through these bootleg Disney movies in Egyptian Arabic. I get the gist, but I still struggle.
I don't know what the hell.
Egyptian is easy for everyone in the Middle East to kind of learn because everything we were exposed to
Yeah, all the
growing up is from Egypt.
the TV
every
shows.
TV
okay.
shows.
Yeah.
We had some like back in those days. Syria was very big with drama, you know, the soap operas and all that stuff. But it was all really Egyptian movies and Egyptian everything. And then after that, like decades later, like Syrian television took over, and you know, and was up there with Egyptian TV and all that. But then you see Egyptian actors. I see Egyptian actors playing like Syrians, and it's very hard to do that. And yeah.
Oh wow. It's weird seeing Egyptian movies where they're trying to play Americans. And it's just bizarre.
It's funny.
They like dye their hair blonde. It's weird. It's not.
And the accent is so like
I remember seeing some Yusuf Shaheen movie.
back in the those are old timers you're talking about.
Yeah. They're better now with portraying Americans, but that was just
Do your impression of an Egyptian actor doing an American accent.
oh gosh.
Do it. Come on.
Come on, try.
Oh, I don't know. They'd probably say they probably would talk like my dad would say he would try to talk like the Fonz if he tried to basically.
That's funny.
That's what he thinks.
That's funny.
All right. So, okay. Now after the Aramean,
Sorry.
I'm with you, brother.
Thinking of your dad talking like the Fonz. I know your dad. That's hilarious.
Okay, so after the Arameans, you basically have like the Achaemenid Empire, which is like it's kind of the first Persian Empire. They roll through. Then Alexander the Great comes through. This is like now like 300s BC. He brings like the Greek culture. They like cities like Antioch, which is at the time part of Syria. And then,
Where is Antioch now?
I think it's part of Turkey. I think it's part of Turkey now.
Is it still called Antioch?
I believe so. I believe it's still called Antioch.
I'm the worst.
I think it's still called Antioch. I don't know. Okay. So, now the Seleucid Empire comes through. So like basically after Alexander the Great, that empire sort of fractions off into different empires. You have the Ptolemies in Egypt. You have the Seleucid Empire. So these are all like, so they basically take over now what is now, modern day Syria. Okay. Dun, dun, dun. Romans come through. Of course, right? Okay. Now this is a key time period because this is 64 BC annexation.
Honestly, that's later than I would have guessed.
Yeah, well, I mean the
Took them a while to get to Syria.
Yeah, it's like, you gotta, that road to Damascus is bumpy.
Yeah, it's a bumpy road to Damascus. Okay. Yeah.
All right, but this is essential because they create this region, what is known as Syria Palestina. Yeah, so that whole area is known as Syria Palestina. Around this time in like the first few centuries, because the first to the 3rd century, Palmyra is a big city, a big flourishing city. It's
Beautiful.
So you've been to Palmyra?
many times.
Oh wow.
It's beautiful. I mean, a lot of it is. I saw it before it was destroyed.
Yeah.
A lot of it was just destroyed.
Yeah.
ISIS,
Unfortunately.
but I've been there many times.
So this was like a key city, right? This was like, so it was along the Silk Road. It's like this like blend of Greek, Roman, and Persian cultures. It's like this like huge like city of commerce, right? But like it was like most known for Queen Zenobia of Palmyra. So she's, I guess, is she like a national hero? I don't know, but so basically she defies Rome, and she has this like short-lived empire from like 267 to 272, but the empire stretches from Turkey to Egypt until her capture. And she was like in defiance of Rome, the biggest empire of all time. Right. And she is like putting up a good fight. And she was just like she was a badass. Like she was like, she claimed to be a descendant of Cleopatra, but like she had that mentality. Like she was like the most badass queen
the region.
In the region. Like it was like extraordinary. But like how, like in Syria, how is like Zenobia regarded?
I think exactly everything you said.
Yeah.
I mean, as a huge historical figure.
Yeah.
And with a huge influence. And basically, was part of that big step. Yeah. To move forward to get rid of the Romans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
eventually.
That was huge.
Yeah.
We love getting rid of the Romans. Every episode, I always highlight
getting rid of the Romans. I have a great picture. I'm going to send I have a great picture. I think I can find it. I'm going to send it to you of me when I was like 12, leaning on a pillar in Palmyra.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I'll send it
Oh,
to you.
cool.
It's
I'd
really-
love to
it's
see that.
really-
Oh,
It's really, it's
oh,
really
yeah,
cool.
We'll use
that's
it for the.
Can we post it?
promo code?
Everything I'll send you can post.
Cool.
There's
Awesome. Thank you. That was
big
super
deal.
fun. That was
Yeah,
super
yeah.
fun.
I'll send you a whole bunch of pictures since this is a lot about Syria. I'll send you a lot of
Cool.
historical pictures if
Awesome.
you want.
Cool.
Yeah,
I
for
love
sure.
that. So it's actually it's of course it's unfortunate that there was obviously that had some destruction to the city.
Right.
But it was the one of the archaeologists that like dug up a lot of these like sites in Palmyra. Palmyra. He named his daughter Zenobia.
Oh, wow.
Which I thought was super cool. Okay. Byzantines come in.
Mm-hmm.
As usual, right? So like Christianization of the region, and this is like that flourishing of like that aesthetic, like monastic communities. Some settled in like cliffside retreats. You said the school you went to that was an Orthodox school, like a Syrian Orthodox, like a Christian Orthodox.
Yeah,
okay.
Christian Orthodox, yeah.
So they kind of adopt that. That's that monastic tradition, that aesthetic tradition. So I guess you had some exposure
because there's the section in the old city, Baptuma.
Mhm.
It's all the Christian section.
Okay.
Yeah. It's Baptuma. This is the gate, Baptuma, and then that whole area was called Baptuma, and it was all the Christian.
Okay.
And then you had right from my grandmother's house was here, and then like the equivalent of like two like city blocks, you move up and there's a street called Shad al Amin, and across is where all the Syrian Jews lived. It's called the Hart al Yahud. So I don't know how to like the alley of the Jews. This was all the Jews. It was like it was incredible.
Yeah, so I think it's so fascinating because like I'm Coptic Orthodox, so I just love that sort of the aesthetic tradition and like sort of going into the desert and like this these like monastic retreats into the even in like when we did the Lebanon episode, like they went to the mountainous area. I just think it's
the cave chapels. And
yeah.
stuff. There's also, I mean, what remains of Syrian Byzantium in terms of artwork and architecture and stuff like there's just absolute beautiful treasures of artistic history.
Yeah, there's a what's the name? In the old city, there's a museum, Mataf al-Azam, something like that. It was a museum. Used to go to it a lot, and it had incredible art and stuff from centuries. Like it was unbelievable. And you see the history, you don't even, there was like, I still remember, but the most thing I was fascinated by was a grain of wheat. It's set up, and there's a magnifying glass, and there's a whole verse of the Quran in it, written on it,
Etched into
it, like the whole verse, verse.
That's so
cool. I mean, who could do that now? I mean, there's a lot of things that they did back then that you think about, even the architecture, building the pyramids or anything. You look at it right now, I mean, like 10 companies had to combine together, architect and all this design and blah, blah, to do something even close to and everything's still holding there.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, my grandmother's house is made of mud and wood.
Wow.
Mud and wood.
Yeah.
Do you know, is that house still standing? Do you know if it's still?
Well, what happened, terrible thing. I mean, my sisters were just there and they went to visit the house, and it was very emotional because what happened is they sold it to this woman. There are a lot of Persians in Syria, and this Persian woman bought it. She wanted to turn it into like a kind of like a hotel stuff for like, because a lot of Persians come for their pilgrimage to like Zainab, and then the war happened, everything, and she gutted it. And so when I have the video, I'll send you a video too. Yeah. It's completely gutted. It's heartbreaking. You see it. It's completely like, even if we did buy it from her, there's no way to, how do you return it back? How do you fix it? What do you do? It's terrible. It was just like, it's a big part of my childhood. It's like, because it's the first thing I was introduced to Syria was that house. Yeah, yeah. And every time we ever visited when I was a kid, it was that house. Yeah. I was very close with my grandmother. Yeah, yeah. That house was history. Yeah. It was literally 700 years old. Wow. Can you imagine living in a house that's 700 years old?
Was that in your family before your grandmother?
I think it was in generation after generation. Like it was like from my grandfather and passed on, and Yeah. 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 Man. It was like it's a beautiful house.
Oh, shit.
Is
Good
the
memories.
exterior then the exterior is the same, or that also got?
Well, the exterior you can see, like
Yeah.
you look at the exterior, the door. There's a
Yeah.
door looks the same,
Yeah.
but then above the door there was this kind of windows all destroyed, and
Okay.
and then the wall. You look on the side, you see the walls completely gutted. Everything is gutted. Like people you can sneak into the place.
Next time you're there, just take the door.
Oh my
Take it
god!
with
I will.
you. Take the door.
It's
the door,
crazy.
give
Like
him
I want
another
to
door.
take. I wanna
People can
take-
sneak in anyway. Take the door. Who cares?
Probably stop me at the airport because it's part of history. Like
a door?
Mail
you're
it. You
stealing,
mail it back piece by piece.
mail the door back. I would if I could get that door.
All right.
I would put it on my wall.
We're
What
going-
audience? It's a challenge to the audience.
We're gonna
I could
go
get
fund
that door,
me.
why
You're gonna
not?
buy me and Abdu a ticket to Syria. We're gonna go get the door.
Well,
getting
it's
the
not the
door.
GoFundMe because I can afford that, but it's like going there. But it's like, how do you get it out?
That's why we're going. That's the GoFundMe for us. Yeah,
All right,
we don't
cool.
We
expect
can
you to
smuggle
pay
doors.
us.
Let the Americans.
We'll get some doors.
Okay,
All right. Thank you.
I'll work it out with
that
the
would be funny.
embassy.
Can you
It's gonna be
imagine if that happens one day? And
We just had the door.
we had the door. Wow.
What I would do is I would knock on the door of your home and just leave the door. You'd open the door and there would be another door.
I think it has to be like one of those, those jobs where you have to come in the middle of the night, take it up,
Yeah,
put
yeah.
something else, and just steal it and leave and run. That's how
I've done stuff like this.
And pray to
before.
God nobody sees you because they might hurt you. So
I'm here for it. I got nothing going on.
the laws in old Damascus are very different. There's like very different. People take things into their own hands.
I think they'd like me in Damascus.
Yeah, of course.
You'll blend in. You look Syrian.
Yeah.
Just grow it out a little.
Yeah.
No, you remind me of a friend. Yeah, yeah.
See,
Look, you're just the local door inspector. That's all.
I'm just here to make sure everybody's got doors.
Yeah. This door is not up to code.
Yeah, we're taking this one. We're going to bring back a different door.
We're going to send it to America.
We're going to send it to
get it
America
tested,
to be
and we're going to
tested.
send you a new door.
Yeah.
Yeah, it might have
This all sounds legit.
asbestos.
Or the easiest is just give someone $1,000 and they'll
Yeah.
freaking steal whatever you want from them.
All right. So, speaking of doors, a door into a new era in Syria, the Islamic Caliphates. I'm not good at transition.
That was beautiful. I was looking for where that came from.
Killing
That was
me.
great. Yeah.
So the Caliphate, so 636 AD, or actually, 636 is kind of the beginning of this era of the Caliphates, but the Umayyad in 660.
Just make
Those
sure
guys are my favorite.
just to clarify that so people who are listening, we're not talking about the term that is used now to just when you use the caliphate.
Right.
Oh, yeah, of
Right.
course.
It's
So
very
it's not,
different.
It's very different.
Yeah.
Now it's used in
Sort of
different-
pejorative term.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we're talking about
Yeah.
history here. So
Yeah.
Yeah. No, this is the proper usage. Okay, the Caliphate.
I'm glad you clarified because
Yeah.
I was just about to say
Which we
that
didn't
Umayyads
clarify
are my
in,
favorite.
We didn't clarify in any of our other episodes. So fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, so the Umayyad.
My
right?
favorite.
So basically, they make Damascus the capital, and this is like a golden age of Islamic culture, right? This is where there's flourishing art and literature and science.
Really cool clothes and swords and dancing.
Yeah. The swords, Damascus steel, is like popular.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Right?
Yeah.
So known for its exceptional strength and sharpness. Do you have anything with Damascus steel, like knives or anything?
I don't have anything here, but we did have a lot of things back home. So I don't know where they are, but
Probably fun.
But you can find you go to Atlantic Avenue. There's a place there that sells a lot of stuff. You can buy stuff here.
Cool.
You can find it.
We're gonna need it if we're gonna take down these doors.
Oh, yeah.
Then you have the Abbasid Caliphate in 750. Again, this is like a continuation of the flourishing of arts and science and medicine. Salah ad-Din unifies Syria and Egypt against the Crusaders in 1187. He's a hero in the Arab world during the Crusades. The Fatimid Caliphate as well, 969 AD, all the way up until 1170s, and then eventually
Another group that I love.
the Mamluks.
Yeah.
The Mamluks. So my understanding, the Mamluks, they were, from Egyptian history, they come in and they're from like all these other regions, like near like the Caspian Sea. They're coming in as slaves.
Threw off the yoke of their slavery.
Yes, and then they become the rulers.
Created their own empire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That lasted 300 years.
Yeah, this is wild.
It's awesome.
After them are the Ottomans, right? So like 1516 all the way until 1918, like
Oh, yeah,
into
that's
what
a-
is now the modern world, which is amazing.
Yeah.
And they actually had 400 years of stability.
Mhm.
Like it's unfortunate that our last memory of the Ottomans is like, they were kind of labeled as like the sick man of Europe and there's this declining empire. But there was 400
Years of peace.
years,
Yeah.
which is crazy.
Relative peace.
Yeah.
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 That is wild.
Yeah.
Mm.
Like as far as like, like in terms of like in Syria, like are there certain eras that are like considered like when you're like growing up in Syria and like going through the educational system or going through the being in the culture, are there certain eras that are considered like the golden age of like the ancient history or the kind of that era or like the Islamic era or like the Caliphate era or like the Ottomans? Like are there golden ages that are regarded?
I think when you walk into the old city, there's reminders of everything.
Yeah.
There's parts of everything. You go to the
There's so much
Umayyad Mosque.
history.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah,
if you ever go there, walk through the Umayyad Mosque
Sure.
one day, and you go in there, you see even it's so beautiful, and it maintained also like the beautiful thing about like in Damascus and Syria, like every new culture that came, they maintained, like they didn't like destroy. Like you go to the Umayyad Mosque. There's a shrine of St. Paul there,
Oh, wow.
that was there before there was a mosque. So the mosque was built around it, So like it's so you go, you see everything. You're like, oh my God, I'm gonna send you pictures too.
Yeah,
I have
cool.
pictures of that
Oh,
too.
so
So
is
cool.
there like would the relics of St. Paul be in Damascus?
I think they are.
They are, right?
I think they are. Like his tomb is there.
It's there, right?
His tomb is
Yeah,
right
yeah.
there. The tomb of St. Paul.
Yeah, yeah.
It's in the middle of the Umayyad Mosque.
Oh wow.
We need to have a full on Indiana Jones.
We need to have like a
Yeah.
Saints relic hunt.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, the relics of Saint Nicholas are in Queens.
Oh wow.
Yes. Yeah, the Greek Orthodox
So we
Church.
start there.
We'll start there.
Start-
We'll just collect and build. All right.
You guys are real serious history buffs.
Kinda.
But it's interesting. Like even like the relics, like in Egypt, like Saint Mark's relics, they're like in like there's like like in different locations, like spread out.
Yeah. But it's so funny, like all this stuff. When you're a kid, you don't appreciate any of this stuff. You walk, you see all this stuff. I appreciate all this stuff after. Like when I went back for the first time in '96 after being here for 6 years, I went around. I went, and I was spoiled because I was Mr. Syria and everyone like was, like it was, I was a kind of a little celebrity there, and but I went to all Damascus. I saw everything. I went to, this. You go to the Nafura Cafe. I don't know how old it is. I would love to learn the history of the Nafura, but I think it goes way, 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 way back. But it's where there's a Hakawati. It's the number one tourist attraction. Like all the tourists go there. There's a Hakawati sitting giving, so it's
the Hakawati. Remember when we did a history of hip hop episode?
Oh, yeah.
It was actually with this. She's like a journalist, and she does like a podcast on like hip hop, like in like the Middle East. She did episodes in Lebanon and all this stuff, and she talked about the Hakawati. And sort of that was like a precursor to like, in a way, they sort of the same role as like rappers, like in hip hop, and they had that similar
Sort of like freestyling.
Yeah, and,
yeah.
like,
There were storytellers. There were poets.
storytelling and,
There
like,
were poets. You sit there, you're glued. You won't. You go here, you see a show, and everyone's talking in the background. And over there, you can hear a pin drop. Everyone's even those who are like don't understand, like the tourists. They sit, they watch, and they're just amazed by this whole thing. I'm gonna send you some cool pictures you're gonna love of
cool.
this Hakawati that was there from when I was a child until like 2010 when I took these pictures. You know?
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So they serve this role as like the storytellers and passing on like these traditions and like kind of like that's super cool. We're going to talk about later, but I really want to talk about Omar Effendum later.
Oh, I love Omar.
We're going to get into a lot of that. I'm super excited about
Omar's
that.
genius.
Oh yeah.
Genius.
Super cool. And shout out to Soha Yassin for her awesome
She was great.
podcast, The Safe House Travel Diary. Okay. So this brings me to now as we're approaching the end of the Ottoman Empire, which is super interesting. And this actually does bring us into this
Hate to
topic
see him go.
of
Talking about the French now?
not yet. I actually don't want to get there yet because we are getting there, but I do want to talk about the late 1880s because this is the beginning of Little Syria.
Oh, yes. And In New York.
In New York. So this is amazing. I didn't know it went this far back. Actually, at the end of the Ottoman Empire in the 1880s. So Little Syria was this sort of this
Before
vibrant,
the end of the Ottoman Empire,
which is
there
crazy.
was Little Syria in New York.
So this is this vibrant Arab immigrant neighborhood in Manhattan, and when we say Syria, it's Greater Syria. So it's really the Levant, mostly. And this is where like the original Sahadis was.
Yeah. I just did the tour.
Oh yeah,
recently.
You
Yeah,
did?
I did the tour. A friend of mine, who was half Syrian, and very good friend of mine now. He was leading this campaign and also funding, and they just got approved. And they're going to put a monument there. There's going to be a monument up there.
Oh really?
Yeah, there's going to be a monument for
Super
Little Syria
cool.
down there.
Wow.
I don't know when it's going to be erected or put up there, but it got
That's
approved. And it's fully
awesome.
funded and everything.
That's
I did
so
the tour.
cool.
It's amazing, and there's, it's just like you. It's amazing to think when somebody tells you like all these buildings, all these houses, they're all Syrians. You know, there was a character I forgot his name. It was like something Mike. But what's his name talks about him too, like Omar Effendim in his little show. I've seen the show. Like
you saw the show? You saw the Little Syria
I don't know
show?
how many times I've seen it. I forgot because every time I see it, I feel like the beautiful thing about it. I feel like I'm seeing it for the first time because he's so inventive and he just it's comes out as if it's coming out of him improvising the spot. This show.
Yeah. So just for that. So basically, Omar Effendim, and we're gonna talk about this more later on. But Omar Effendim and there's two other people. Thanks, Joey, and I forget the name of the third person involved with it. But it's a play, and it kind of reminds me of like Hamilton in like the style, and there's like rapping and
Ronnie
storytelling. Ronnie Malley, and that's storytelling. I've only heard like the clips that are on YouTube of it, but it was awesome. It was
You haven't seen the show?
I've not seen the show.
There's one coming up soon, like in maybe June or
in
something.
Manhattan?
Yeah, at the public theater, at Joe's Pub.
Joe's Pub, yeah.
Yeah.
I'd love to see it. All right.
Yeah, we should all go together.
Field trip. Yeah, hell yeah.
I'd love to see it.
I'd love to see it,
love
yeah.
to
It'd
see
be
it.
awesome.
It's really
super
good.
cool.
You know, there's also like in Boston, there's a neighborhood that was like a Little Syria neighborhood.
Really?
Oh yeah.
wow.
I was when I was doing a play there a long time ago, and and I was with someone who was just been there forever, and when you knew that I was Syrian, and they took me on this tour, and they showed me, see all these buildings here. These everyone here was Syrian. It was like this was like Little Syria.
I guess it would make sense, right? Like if you're immigrating to New York, if not, you're going to Boston, any of these old cities in the U.S. where you're going to go. They're trying to make a living. They're trying to, that would make sense. So unfortunately, and we're later on, right? So like kind of in the mid 20th century, it's like due to construction of like the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel. Thanks a lot, Robert Moses.
Fucking Robert Moses. Robert Moses can eat my asshole.
And the World Trade Center. So making room for construction of the World Trade Center. This pushes out. That basically is the end of Syria. Yeah. What I didn't realize though, like that neighborhood, a lot of those people migrated to Atlantic Ave in Brooklyn. That's where so now you have that whole block on Atlantic Ave and
a lot of Syrians.
Sahadis and all that. So I didn't realize, like, I always thought, like, oh, that neighborhood in Brooklyn, that's probably from the 60s, and that was probably a wave of immigrants coming over around that time. I didn't realize
120
the history
years old.
before that. It was actually
back,
1880s in Manhattan. Now migrate. This is like a second migration over into Brooklyn, and like they preserved, a lot of that.
There's one. There's a church there. I think that's still there. It's still active. I think it's
in the Manhattan Little Syria.
Yeah. Or something, or event place. It's an event.
I think there's like a restaurant there now, but I think
used to be a church or something. But there was and then there's one incredible building that's vacant. Like I daydream about like being rich enough to buy it one day, just to, and keep it, just like just preserve it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I mean everything's changed now. Everything looks different, but it's all gone.
Yeah.
But
the church, I think it's like a restaurant now, but like the outside facade is preserved.
Yeah.
And I think it's like one of those, like they have to keep it preserved.
Yeah.
It's like a landmark or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, I think after 100 years, a building becomes eligible for national landmark status.
Oh, okay.
Because I had a granduncle who lived in Jersey City, and his house was built like the late 1800s or whatever. Wow. And now it's, I mean, some family lives there or whatever, but it's like on the, it's like registered as a landmark, and they have to like go through all kinds of stuff just to do.
Yeah, but these days though, like you see the city is being destroyed, all landmarks are being destroyed because they'll find if some developer wants to get knock down a building. They'll find reasons to not half of these big fancy buildings that are erected. They're erected right on my corner on 6th Avenue. There was a landmark bank that for years I've been trying to get rid of it on 6th Avenue and 14th Street. It had a clock. It was beautiful, and they finally got it down. Yeah. And basically from what I hear, they just preserved the floor. Yeah. They preserved the floor because that's a part of the landmark that they kept.
So they got away with it.
I don't know. It's just ugly. It's an ugly fucking building there. Yeah. It used to be this beautiful bank with a big clock,
So, Laith, if I understand what you're suggesting is we should steal the door off of that church.
We're just going to steal doors.
Okay, on it.
We're going to steal as many doors as we can.
We're on it.
Okay. You don't have to say anything.
You don't have to say anything. Say no more. We got it. We got it. No, we're at the Damascus Steel on Atlantic Ave. We're on it. Okay. So I want to backtrack a little bit in history. I just wanted to really introduce that idea of little Syria going back so far at the end of the Ottoman Empire. But I do want to now bring us to World War I, right? A lot of things, times they are a-changing. I wanted to mention Lawrence of Arabia, sort of his role in Damascus. He's kind of a wacky guy.
This is a time period that for some reason I know that it's problematic. Again, through the modern lens, this is a time period that was the height of Orientalism and the absolute robbery of, but also, it's full of all these wacky characters
He's an interesting guy.
Literally couldn't exist at any other time.
He was an archaeologist. He treks all over the Middle East.
He's a colonel. He's a scientist. Yeah. He's a Lothario. He's like Alan Quartermain or something.
No, but he was kind of like so. Actually, he was sort of like he was he was a super nerd basically because he was like. I don't think he had any really many more romantic relationships.
Oh, he was a sexy weirdo.
No, he was not a sexy weirdo. He was I think he might even have been asexual or something.
They made him sexy in the movie.
Only in the movie. He actually really was trying to be a recluse. He hated the fame he got from the movie.
Those baby blues though, Laurence Olivier.
So he changed his name twice, trying to hide from this persona of Lawrence of Arabia. Huh. He tried to
Was it Peter O'Toole?
Yeah, Peter O'Toole, yeah. So he tried to distance himself from that persona. Wow. So just super interesting. But anyway, the whole thing was so during World War I, so T.E. Lawrence or Lawrence of Arabia, he helped with these Arab troops in seizing Damascus from the Ottomans. So Amir Faisal basically was sort of uniting these tribes. He was a part of that movement against the Ottomans. For the Arabs to establish this government there. But the idea was that the promise was, you will have your own statehood, So that was the idea. It was under that premise, this will be a pathway to your freedom. I don't know, Lawrence of Arabia, it's hard to know exactly, the sense I got was on sort of historians on doing biographies on him, his intentions were that he was fascinated with the Arab world, and he did want them to have that independence. I think he naively
believed that the British government would follow through.
And I think that was a part of his Orientalism. The only pathway to statehood is to join. This could only come through the British, and then of course, guess what? Doesn't work out. So I don't know in terms of how he's perceived in Syria or in Damascus.
When I was a kid, look. To be clear for everyone watching, so I don't look dumb, I'm learning a lot here too myself. Just to be clear, but he is. He's very influential because I think every person. Lawrence is in Arabic we say Lawrence. It's a very popular name in Syria. A lot of people named their kids Lawrence, and it's because of it's not because let's look in the book and find a name. No, because it's Lawrence of Arabia. So he's very influential. Yeah, and you can't mention that name to anyone, even if you know nothing about history, Lawrence of Arabia. Right. So, and he was, and I think, was it around that time after, with the Ottomans when Bilad al-Sham, when Bilad al-Sham, started, because it was Egypt, Lebanon, and Syria, they were all one. And then it was Syria and Lebanon, and then they split.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
History. So rich.
So it's interesting, and I think with Lawrence of Arabia, I think, like I was saying, I think he did have. I don't know. I could be wrong, but I think his intentions were good. It was just I think there was he was
maybe
naive and And I think he was disheartened with the outcome. So much so he literally just goes into hiding. Like this guy was like world famous, and then he kind of just becomes a recluse and like hides and like doesn't want to be found.
J.D. Salinger.
So pretty interesting. Okay. So
I choose to believe he was sexy.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
Okay. That's to be.
Let's move on.
Well, the standards of sexiness was different back then.
See?
Sure.
You know, someone with six pack was not considered sexy back then. You know what I mean, so
You want a hearty.
Yeah.
you know yeah.
Yeah. A little weirdo hiding from the general public. That was the height of sexiness. No. All right. Okay, so here's the thing. So we're kind of in this time period, right? Key event, 1916. The Sykes-Picot Agreement.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay. This is a secret pact dividing Ottoman Middle Eastern lands between Britain and France. Basically, it directly contradicts the British's promise to the Arabs about granting them independence in exchange for their support against the Ottomans. So, maybe an understatement, but worst double booking in history, perhaps.
Possibly.
No, they were so not committed. If you look at a picture, you Google image the original draft, the map, the Sykes-Picot map, Sykes signs it in what looks like pencil.
Wow.
He couldn't even
not
sign it in
ink.
pen.
Wow.
Even Pico signs it in pen. Sykes is like, we need an eraser for this one.
Wow.
That's how not committed they are. Look at it. I don't know. That's what it looks like to me. If you actually look at it, it looks like he's writing it in pen. He signs it in
Those
pen.
two started everything, man.
Yeah, yeah. And this fucks up everything.
Because of that day.
Yeah, the ramifications of this are immeasurable.
Yeah. I think
Right.
the world would, I don't know what the world would have been without that agreement, but it would have been very different today.
Yeah, because the lines are very arbitrary, right? And they're sort of like dividing not based off of like meaningful groups or through like ethnicity. It's just dividing through ethnicities. Like if you think about like even like because we did 2 episodes on India, right? And so when we talk about even like the Indian partition between India and Pakistan, right? That was an arbitrary
Just a
line,
random
right?
line, yeah.
And that's just between those two, like and
That was
of
in the
course,
40s too, no? 48?
yeah,
48?
yeah. I think somewhere around
Something
there.
like that,
Yeah, I mean the British were just drawn. They were just crayons all over a world map, just fucking up for centuries to come.
I love drawing lines. That's a favorite pastime hobby. Let's draw some lines here. Hey, okay.
And like you think about it, like so those were 2 nations created in the case of India and Pakistan, but like how many nations were like arbitrarily created with these lines that they make with the Sykes-Picot agreement?
Yeah.
Like so the ramifications of that are just like immense. This then lays the groundwork for the French Mandate. Right? So now this is like 1920. So like France administered Syria and Lebanon and like forced Faisal into exile. Right? And of course, guess what? National uprisings, right, eventually lead later on to Syrian independence in 1946. Yep.
Yeah.
So that's a big day. Is that a
Big national holiday.
That's
huge.
the day, right?
Yeah. Huge holiday, yeah.
Okay. So big achievement. Okay. 1948,
No, yeah.
May 14th, Al
Nakba.
Nakba. Right? Now we can, our audience can refer to our first episode with Palestine with the great Shatha Yas. I don't know if you know Shatha Yas.
She's so
comedian, Palestinian comedian. She's on the Arab American.
What's her name?
Shatha Yas.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. She's a guest on our first episode.
I know,
of
yeah.
Palestine. So
Yeah.
she goes into depth.
Very funny.
on
She's terrific.
She was great. She was fantastic. Okay, so obviously this is a big sticking point in the region till today, right? Other big shifts, like political shifts in this time, right? Is like the rise of the Ba'ath Party. I think 'cause they start in like 1946, as early as that. There's like numerous coups and like there's this like political union for a brief period between Egypt and Syria, the United Arab Republic, starting in 1958, lasts until 1961. This basically sets the stage for the Ba'ath Party's eventual dominance and the rise of Hafez al-Assad.
And in Iraq, too, I think they were the Ba'ath Party in Iraq, too.
Yeah. So all these events, see, like, and this is like this domino effect. All because of fucking Sykes and Picot and all this bullshit. This domino effect and the ripples of this are like.
I'm so glad I never had to be exposed to the Ba'ath because I was the only child, so
Yeah.
I had no obligatory military. You know, I didn't have to do the military. Therefore, I also didn't have to like join. I didn't affiliate with any, even in high school, any political party, anything like that. I was like,
lucky.
it was scary. Like, I still remember, and oh my God, like in the university. I don't know if this is off topic, but I'll tell the story.
No, go on.
And I was a good writer. I'm always to this day, I think I'm still a good writer, but
we think so.
but so we used to whatever you're studying, whether it's high school or in the university, there's a class for political, and it's a heavy class. You can't, if you don't pass that class, it could affect you passing the year,
Yeah.
And one of the questions would always be like, on blah, 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 on this day, President Assad gave a speech, blah, 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 blah. Write a piece that you remember from that speech, because they expect you have to read papers, you have to memorize things and everything. I would write the best fucking speeches, make them up, and write the best speeches, and I would get the best grades all the time. All the time, man. It's so
amazing.
Yeah, man.
Awesome.
That's amazing. We should have you recite one of your
speeches. Yeah.
Well, because you just all you have to do is just praise.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a simple formula, right? Okay, so now these are tumultuous times. 67. There's a 6-day war. So June 6th, Israel launches this preemptive attack, captures the Golan Heights from Syria. Then 1973, Yom Kippur War, October 6th, Egypt and Syria launched their surprise attack on Israel. So Syria is very much involved in this conflict, right? 70s come. So Hafez al-Assad is basically president from 1971 to 2000, right? Known for his authoritarian rule. And then in 2000, Bashar al-Assad takes over. And there's basically civil unrest. The Syrian civil war is sparked during the Arab Spring in 2011, and
it became a big mess. It just never
big mess.
Well, so we had it's so funny. The civil war destroyed everything in Syria. It really destroyed so many things. We had all these. I had everything from my childhood in Syria I kept. I even had a gold coin when the Queen Mother, at the time, she visited our school and she gave us these commemorative coins. I still had those. I had so many things from my childhood, and they were all stored in our house. We had a summer house that I never saw, but my dad was building when I was still there as a kid. But it was a summer house, and a couple hours away, closer to Lebanon or whatnot. I was asking my dad for some of the things, to bring with him when he was going to visit, because I just wanted them here. And, that house was taken over by ISIS.
Oh, wow.
And they destroyed everything in it, everything. And I'll send you a video of that too. It's heartbreaking, God. And it's everything was destroyed.
Oh, wow.
You know what I mean? Everything was taken, from my guitar to everything that I had, because I kept things. I hold on to things, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was devastating, man, what they did with this war. And it was something preventable.
Yeah.
It was something that didn't, there's something inevitable that's going to happen in probably every country in that region. I don't know. Maybe my lifetime, maybe next lifetime. I don't know. But not like that. It shouldn't have been like that, because that was devastating to everyone. The country right now is suffering. It's heartbreaking. I can't even think about it, because and it's history. History is being erased.
Yeah.
History is being erased by our own doing.
Yeah.
By our own doing. I mean, there's a lot of outer forces too involved. So but I'm not an expert. I'm not going to talk about that. But there's a lot of it has to do with us too. You know? Which makes me sad.
Yeah. It's sad and it's scary, and erasing history has so many ramifications in the way history then gets rewritten.
Right.
And and so preserving it.
But who's rewriting history? Who's rewriting it?
Or the worst mistakes get repeated.
Yeah.
Because we've blinders on about what really happened and how it shook out and where we're left.
Yeah.
But I think this stuff is happening everywhere.
Of
You know,
course.
even in America.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Oh,
we don't have. America doesn't have the same history, but whatever history it has is also,
We're developing a culture that's increasingly comfortable with redacting and rewriting a narrative.
right.
And that gives me some misgivings about our future as a nation.
Yeah. Scary.
But, again, I don't want to sound like grandpa, but I think that's something that happens generationally.
Yeah.
But it's still worthwhile to sort of be a little bit vigilant about,
Inshallah.
Inshallah.
Inshallah, yeah.
Inshallah.
Inshallah, yes.
Yes,
Inshallah,
I
yes.
love that. And that is a beautiful way to sort of end our history segment, because I do want to
Cool.
get into our culture segment.
Oh, this
Okay,
is
yeah.
the fun
So
part.
this is where
This I'm better at.
we're gonna have some fun.
This
with
is I'm better
All
at.
right, so we have
4 F's.
the 4 F's of cultural survival: film, fiction, food, and funk. So sort of your picks and our picks.
Food, film.
Film,
Fiction.
food, and funk. So movies, TV, books, food, music. And
Okay.
we end with
Yeah.
music. So we have so we want to hear your loves, your picks, and then we have some of our picks as well. For film, movie, TV, what are you, for as far as Syrian inspired or in Syria? What are your
Oh man, I
Go-tos.
loved all the old movies, man.
Yeah.
There was a time like the old black and white movies in Syria, they were
Okay.
they were leaders in cinema.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, then the films, they were, not censored, and they were not they were just very free, and then I loved all the movies, and with duo Dured Laham or Hesni Borazan, they do all these, they're like, Laurel and Hardy, but the
Oh, yeah.
Syrian,
Okay.
and I think there was a golden era of cinema, and then it died. Now there's I don't think there's if there's ever a Syrian filmmaker that's finding success, is doing stuff, they're not making films in Syria because everything in Syria is made by the state, and they're made for nobody.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So, but also television too had a lot of influence on us, because that's all we had. We used to love watching the commercials, the cartoons and everything.
Yeah.
So it's a big part of the culture,
So what decade is would be like the golden age?
I don't know. I think before before the 80s, I think. I think there was a God damn it. There was a movie called The Extra.
Oh yeah, yes. The extras,
Nabil
Al-Compars,
the Compars,
yeah,
by Nabil Al-Malih.
yeah.
And that film was revolutionary.
Oh yeah.
And I know a lot about the making and that
really?
film because I know Nabil Maleh. This kind of a relationship, and in his when he in his older age, he's visited New York. He stayed at my place before, and he his brother's married to a cousin.
Oh wow.
And he made the comparison. When he made it, it was like it delved into sexuality, which is also like a bit of a taboo issue, and politics and intelligence and being watched and all that stuff, the things that people don't want you to, you can't talk about. And it was beautifully done.
Oh, wow.
And Bassam Kousa was very young when he did it. It was beautiful. One of my favorite Syrian actors.
Wow.
And when he made the film, they're like, okay, great. But they weren't going to screen it anywhere.
Oh yeah.
But what he had done, he's not going to be in trouble now because he passed away. So sadly passed away. But he had smuggled, my understanding is, and from what I learned from him, he had smuggled the film had gone already, sent it to the Cairo International Film Festival, and they were going to screen it. And there's nothing that the Syrian government could do about it. Like it's already like, I didn't know it's there. They're going to screen it. And when they screened it, it was a huge success. And I think it won the Silver Bear at the Berlin Film Festival.
Oh, wow.
But also then they used it. It was used also as a propaganda. Look, we have freedom. We can do movies about this. And that. But that movie, like nobody could make that. That movie. Like I would do an exact remake of that movie, but I cannot do it there. I'll have to do it, and I understand that's how it is because it could hurt a lot of people, and and that's how it is over there. So that's
wow. I only briefly understand the plot. It's a Syrian couple and their plan to emigrate to Canada.
Basically, it was about this guy who was he was an extra He was paranoid about being watched, and he was having an affair, I think, with a widowed lady or a widowed woman, and that was a plot of it. But he was always paranoid about being watched, and the whole thing is he being watched? Is he not being watched?
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Oh, wow.
And his job was an extra, but I think he wanted to be more than an extra, but his job was an extra. Yeah.
Oh wow.
I'll try to find a copy, and I tried to find it one time, and I had to pay $200 for it. I'm like,
Oh wow.
nah.
Really?
And I was gonna wait to get it from the deal, but then
wow.
it's a beautiful film.
Oh wow.
It's I think nobody makes films like that.
That's amazing.
Anymore.
That's amazing.
Nobody can unless they're outside.
Yeah, and then just like when you like and having those like taboo topics, like I was just thinking, like it reminds me a little bit of, even though I don't think it was as probably this is more controversial, but like even in Egypt, like the Yakubian building. Like,
Oh yeah, I remember that film. Oh
Yeah.
my God, that film when it came out.
Yeah,
I mean, it had a gay character in it, and it was like changed. I mean, it was a big deal.
yeah.
Like I think people, from my understanding, got in trouble.
Yeah, I think so.
A lot of people got in trouble for that, and that was a beautiful. There was a play, a friend of mine here wrote a play, the Yakubian, based it on the film.
Oh really?
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah.
Oh really?
It was
Where's
produced
that?
a while back.
Oh okay.
He's Egyptian playwright,
Oh nice.
Egyptian American.
Yeah.
But like the thing is, like these stories, they're not bad stories. They're human.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not like they're trying to take down a system or government. It's just human stories. Like
There's nothing
So what?
inherently evil about the story.
I've been through times. Look, been through serious paranoia, being watched, and being after 9/11, it was terrible. I had Joint Terrorism Task Force come to my house. 5 people enter my house without a warrant, come into my house and asking me about this guy that I knew from 10 years ago. It was the scariest thing ever. I threw out all my furniture. I was so paranoid for 3 months. I was just like, oh my God, what So this is a state, like it's a natural thing, So it's not like they're not trying to take down the government. They're telling a story.
Yeah.
But that's how it is until one day, hopefully it's not. Yeah. Same in Egypt, but I think in Egypt, well, I don't know. Egypt went through periods. Like now it's very difficult now, I think, in Egypt. Now you can't even, I know of, a stand-up comedian who made jokes about Egyptian Air, the airline, and they
really
and they took her from after the show, and they took her to a hotel, got her stuff, and they deported her.
Oh my God.
So, and what about the wasn't there a singer who criticized the Nile, said I would never swim in the Nile because it's blah blah blah, and they put her in prison?
Oh my God.
What about Ahmed Rakid?
Yeah.
Ahmed Rakid.
Yeah.
Ahmed Rakid was tweeted something, and he was sentenced to 8 years in 8 years in prison. 8 years in prison without being there. They just
Like writing a traffic ticket.
yeah, they sentenced to 8 years in prison for tweeting.
Oh my God.
So
Oh boy.
man. But it's scary here too. So
Yeah.
everywhere's scary.
But no, that's why, brave people that put these things out there, we really are indebted to them. It's really something remarkable.
Again, the vanguard against allowing that history to be forgotten and those stories to just be redacted or swept away or ignored, and clinging to the essential humanity of those stories that are so universal.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we were even just talking on the way here. We were talking about just like universal stories and just like tapping into like, just things that resonate with so many people. We were talking about like Rami and your own Rami and just the characters in Rami, like the realness of it and like getting to the heart of just like real people with real problems and so multidimensional and like taboo topics, things you're not supposed to say, things you're not supposed to talk about, things you're not supposed to think, but we're all thinking, we're all and it's just, and when you see it and you visualize it, just that, I don't know.
But it's in the end, if you look at Rami, it's so simple.
Yeah.
It's so human.
Yeah.
But because human beings, we are complex beings. So we get to see this complexity through through these very relatable people. They're all like archetypes of everyone. I'm the uncle that I play the uncle that everyone has. And Rami is probably almost the son of every immigrant who's battling between two things. And so it's beautiful. It was one and it opened the doors for everything. Rami is he's revolutionary.
Yeah.
I don't think he knows the impact that he has had. He's changed everything.
Yeah.
I don't think Miss Marvel would have been made without Rami.
Wow.
It's
And the key element was be honest.
very honest.
That was it. That's
as hard as it is, you know. Like, and when I got the audition, I read my first line, and I'm like, "What am I saying?" I'm saying something derogatory about Jews. My first line, I'm like, and I spoke to Rami. I knew him, and I'm like, Rami, is this like how they letting you say this? And I'm like, no, there's no. Like, you sure you want me to say this? And I'm like, and then that was it. And then, but he's real.
Yeah, the realness of that character.
People talk like that.
Real.
People say things like that. And on the side, doesn't matter if they're Christian, Muslim, Jewish. They say the same things.
Everyone has an Uncle Nassim.
Yeah.
And it was very complex. And then when we added that twist and that took everyone by surprise in season 2, which is it's when you look at everything that led to it, it makes sense. Yeah. Even that one, I was shocked because I told Rami, like, when we talked about it, part of it was like I had the idea, and when I told him and he said they already discussing this in the writer's room, and then we did it, and I said I'm okay with doing it. And the reason I said it's okay, not because I don't want to play a gay character, but because I know that there might be a possible blowback from overseas, from my family and everything like that, Yeah. But I did it, and my God, that's where things are changing too. There's more of acceptance. Like we see all these terrible things that are going on in the Middle East, and everything. But there's a lot of, there are communities there. There's a big queer community in the Middle East, and I was expecting to get more like 90% hate and stuff, and 10% love, and I got 95% love and 5% like of messages like saying shit to me and blah 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 blah. It was absolutely incredible. Like stories of people say we watched that episode. There was this kid in Egypt, he said we watched the episode with my family, and right after the episode ended, he came out to his family. Oh wow! Like stuff like that is pretty powerful, Yeah. And it wasn't the intention; it was just telling a story, being truthful. That people, this is a struggle that I know so many people struggle with it. Yeah. And like I said before, like it's. And I relate to it because I've struggled with having my own secrets, my own things that I couldn't share. I was afraid to share for shame, for retaliation, for whatever reason, for rejection, So that's why it's a very relatable show. That's why it's not just an Arab show. Yeah. It's for everyone.
These little private wars we fight with
every
ourselves,
every day, every minute of the day, there's something going on inside us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
A couple other super fun sort of Syrian, picks I had here were, of course, we already mentioned Little Syria. Yeah. I just want to kind of go deeper into it. So it's a play by Omar Effendim, Ronnie Malley, and Thanks Joey. So it's set in the historic Lower Manhattan, Little Syria. Yeah. And he kind of merges hip hop, Arabic music, storytelling, the Hakawati storytelling. Beautiful, yeah. It's the little bit that I heard of it was just so cool. And it's just so cool to know the history and just like all these like legends that actually lived in that time period.
Yeah, man.
Like, Amin Rehani, Khalil Gibran. It's unbelievable. Just to bring it to life. And there really hasn't been anything else out there. The only other thing I know that kind of goes into the history is there's a book, Strangers in the West. Do you know this book? It's like by Linda Jacobs. She sort of chronicles the lives of like the first immigrants to Little Syria.
Okay. What's it called again?
It's called Strangers in the West.
Okay.
So it's super cool. It's probably like one of the more probably the most detailed chronicling of that.
I'd love to read that.
Yeah. And she has like a lecture on there's like a YouTube lecture. Okay. She talks for like an hour. That's great. And some super cool. It's when the people that were interrupting the lecture asking, "Oh, what building is that in the background?" Like, who cares? It's not the interesting part. Anyway, whatever. I was just yelling in the kitchen about it. All right, anyway, another one that was interesting was There's it's like a fun one, like a British TV series, Home.
Oh yeah, I saw
Starring
it.
Youssef.
Yeah.
He's Moroccan. But
Yeah, he's
the
Moroccan,
show-
but he did a great job.
Yeah, the
I
show's
love
great.
that show.
So it's basically about a Syrian asylum seeker who unwittingly becomes part of a British family after being smuggled into the UK in the trunk of the car. Yeah, that's a fun show.
I love
really
that show, and I
enjoyed
love what he does with it. And it's beautiful. It's heartbreaking at times because you just see. But again, it shows you the I'll speak for my, I'm going to speak because I'm Syrian. I'll speak for Syrians. There's one thing about Syrians, they're just so hungry for life.
Mhm.
They just want to live. They want to, and you see this person, I mean, his struggles and how he takes things, and it's just like, it's heartbreaking, but he's just striving because he knows he's going to change things.
Yeah.
I love that. I don't know. I wonder if there's going to be a season 3. They had 2 seasons, I think, right?
2 seasons.
I
Yeah.
wonder if there's going to be season 3. I don't know. But I really, and I was very, happily surprised that BBC, I think it was BBC.
Yeah. No, Channel 4.
Channel 4 would make a show like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I was like very, Because I remember the actor because I saw him, he did Baghdad Central. Do you see Baghdad
no,
Central?
I did not see that.
It's a really good show. You should watch it. Baghdad Central with Walid Zaitar.
Okay.
It's the first like high octane action series with an Arab lead that takes place in Iraq, and it's really beautiful. About a man looking for his daughter.
Cool.
Awesome. It's great.
Now, are there any more recent or modern Syrian actors or comedians or shows that you're excited about, or even with Syrian actors or anything?
I mean, there's Syrian actors that I'm excited about that I want to, I have a dream that I want to do. I do want to do because I grew up watching these TV shows in Syria, and my dream's always been to be part of one. And a lot of them shooting out in Dubai and all that stuff. And I know a lot of people there. And I was asked to be part of this show it just came out on Amazon. Yeah, that's called Do you see the Al Manassa?
No.
The platform is really good.
Oh,
it's on Netflix. There's 3 seasons of it. Hosan Akko is an incredible writer and director, and he wrote that show. And we got to know each other. He's a fan of Rami, but I couldn't go because I was shooting Rami and I couldn't do anything. So I would like to one day, and I have friends. Yeah, it's a little easier there. There's a lot of Laith, let's put him in. You don't have to. I'm not gonna have to audition and stuff like that. They're like, we'll give him a role. Yeah. So I would love to one day be a part of something that's special. Yeah. I would love to do a show where I'm speaking Syrian Arabic the whole time. Yeah. Oh, no American character, nothing guy not speaking English and blah blah blah. This and that. No, I just want to play. That's a goal. I'll do it one day. One day I'll do it.
Please do.
And I do have a dream project that I want to do one day. This is my dream. I have a couple of personal dream projects. One of them is a personal story to me that I want to shoot in Syria maybe in 5 years. But the other one is something that I want to collaborate with the right people, and I want to write a show about Hammurabi.
Oh, really?
Cool. I've never seen. I shouldn't have been saying this because I don't want anyone else to.
Oh, I could cut that out.
but I mean, that part of history was absolutely amazing. Brutal and just rich,
wild,
and there's so much richness and research to be done. And then you can just create any storylines.
Sure. Super cool.
What a time that was.
Oh, yeah.
What a time.
Oh, I would be super excited for that.
Oh,
yeah.
God,
Please do that.
Yeah. So that's my, future.
Put me in it as prisoner too.
The guy who stole the apple and got executed.
Yeah, fine, whatever. Cut off my hands. I don't give a shit.
Well, if you could have my dad be killed in it like he did.
He'll be.
Not that I love my dad.
Your dad,
he's good at it.
Being killed. He's good at that.
He's good at that.
He's good at that.
Super cool. Awesome. Okay, so now this brings us to our next F, which is food. Okay, so what is your comfort food? Your Syrian comfort food?
I mean, my favorite dish is rizz bazalia, which is rice, peas, simple rice, peas, and meat mixed together. And then you have there's a yogurt mix you make with with cucumbers and garlic, and you just add it to it and just eat. I can, like when my mom, it's probably the only thing I can make because it's like, I don't make it like my mom does, but when like my mom comes and before she leaves, she'll like fill my freezer with bags of it.
Oh, nice.
Like she'll make it and put it in the freezer.
Say it again.
Riz bezalia.
Riz bezalia.
Riz bezalia. Yeah, it's like, yeah. But everything. The thing is, see, the Syrian food is very healthy. However, the thing is, we're not good with quantity management. Like when people have dinner in Syria, Egypt, same thing.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like over here, like, what are we having, Mom, today? We're having meatballs and spaghetti. Okay, great. No, over there you have dinner, there's like 5 different dishes.
Yeah.
5 different dishes and you're just eating everything. You keep on eating until you just can't get up.
Yeah. Like my mom does not understand the concept of sides. She only knows like main dish. It's just like you have to have like 10 main dishes.
No, yeah, my mom will come here. I'll have like gatherings and they'll like be a lot of people. Like she'll cook for like 10 people, you know. And these are people like, especially my fitness days, everyone's like, very aware of what they take in, and like they're asking, like, "What's in this? Is that oil?" No oil. No oil. It's not no oil, but just a little bit. Olive oil, very healthy. Not a little bit, And then, but no, it's and Arabic food is loaded.
Oh yeah,
is rich.
Oh yeah, we also have our from Dar 525. We got some Syrian food. If
what do you get?
What here? We got it. And this is like I think this is a cheese and spinach.
And that's hummus. Msabbaha. Msabbaha, which is how in Syria and Damascus we say hummus. What do you say hummus here?
Oh,
in Damascus we call it msabbaha.
I did not know
Only
that.
in Damascus. You can go.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
You go to Aleppo, you say msabha.
Yeah,
it's like chickpeas with like a whole different like mix, But in Damascus, you say msabbaha.
Oh,
so I guess that's a real Syrian restaurant.
That
is
the real deal. That's the real deal.
Cool.
Yeah, and then they have what they're calling Syrian rolls. This one is the cheese and the spinach. There's a lamb version. So.
No, man, the Syrian cuisine, man, is like dangerous. Dangerous for us, man, because we.
Are there any in the city?
I'm not great at portion control myself.
I'm not good at portion control.
Are there any Syrian restaurants you go to in New York?
Well, my best friend owns Mamoun's.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was my first friend in America.
Wow.
I met him when he was 17, I was 20, and he's he's one of the brothers. They own all the stores, and he would have loved to be here because he has read every book in the world about the history of the Middle East.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. But
we'll get him in for
if you get him in, you have
awesome.
Want to talk to him about history.
Yeah, we do a food.
I mean, he talks about like he has a story that he tells like it's very beautiful. He's a great writer, and he talks about when his father took him the first time to Damascus. I think he was 10 years old. He went to the old city and he put his ear against one of the walls of this big old building. And his dad like, come on, what are you doing? And he said, I want to listen to the history that's coming through the thing. It's beautiful.
Cool.
Yeah.
What a cool guy.
I love Mamoun's. And all of their, they have a few sites, but they're all good. Like even the one in Princeton is as good as the one on
they all
Google.
have, because they all have the same source, the same food. They own them all.
Yeah.
And it's good, very good people. My first friend, I worked across the street when I first arrived to America at the falafel place, and he was there were always a line there, but there was no line where I was working. I was standing outside.
the one across the street.
Alibaba, back in the day, before your time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I came in 1990, so yeah. But Syrian food, there used to be, like it's one thing to have restaurants that have just, fast food, the falafel, this and that, but to have like a restaurant that has real Syrian food.
Yeah.
Like cooked food and stuff like that. There used to be one. I don't know if it's still here. It's called like Magic Carpet. They were down around Soho area. I don't know. It was around. I think they're gone, but they had good food. There's some you'll find a lot in what's that part of the next to Patterson, Clifton.
Okay.
Clifton, New Jersey. There's
really?
There's one.
Yeah.
There's a one on every block.
Yeah.
But there's
have you heard of Psycho? SYKO? in Brooklyn.
Why does that sound so familiar? I just heard about this. Somebody told me about it. I can't.
So it's actually a half Syrian, half Korean restaurant in South Slope.
Yes. I heard about it.
I'm fascinated.
I saw a video. I saw a video about it. I saw a video about it,
Yeah.
and I was fascinated by it.
Yeah. Super interesting. No, I'd love to go.
Yeah, my sister's a cook, and my sister's like a professional cook, and she just opened in Dubai. Opened a restaurant that opened it early this year with her Korean partner.
Oh,
and it's Korean halal street food.
oh wow, cool.
And she's doing only delivery.
Yeah.
Only delivery, and she's doing really well.
Oh,
She
cool.
comes here. When she comes here, she'll just like spend the day cooking.
Yeah.
And cook like for like 10 days for me, like stuff the refrigerator.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah, and then I gained like 10 pounds.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, you go to Syria for 2 weeks. There's no way in the world you're not going to gain weight.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so like, this brings us to our last F.
Last F.
Which is funk. So the
Funk.
music of Syria. So like, obviously we mentioned Omar Effendam and his albums. George Wassouf, the legend.
Yep.
What is like your go-to, like what is like as far as like Syrian music?
I mean, like again, this is something you have to understand, when you're a teen or a kid growing up in Syria who's already been exposed to the West.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to keep that connection with that, so you try to stay in touch with pop culture as much as you can.
Yeah.
So, and that's what I did. I was like kind of like the guru there. Everyone came to me to recommend movies, and I had like cassettes for every American rock band, everything. So that's what I was exposed to, and I really did not. I stayed away from Arabic music because it wasn't part of my palette.
Right.
But when I came here, that's when I found the respect for that music. And that's when I started listening to, Kulthum, George Wassouf, Mayada Hannawi, all these legends. What's her name? She came up around the time I was, oh my God, I can't remember her name. She was a kid, big star, but then
Syrian or Lebanese?
Syrian. I'll remember her name in a second. But I mean, the music, I think Fahad Ballan, and there's a lot of Lebanese. Of course, Fayrouz.
Of course, we have her.
I mean,
display here.
Fayrouz is not just the pride. It's not just the pride of Lebanon. She's the pride of every Arab. You know what I mean? Her and Kulthum, Abdul Halim Hafiz.
Hafiz, I always knew about Hafiz from my dad, and he would play, while he's just like smoking cigarettes in the basement. But it really hit me. I remember being in I spent some time in Egypt after college. I worked a semester at the American University. I remember my last day being in the airport, listening and just like rediscovering the song Sawa. I cried in the airport.
Beautiful.
I cried. I was just bawling, just crying. It's touching.
I remember. I have the funniest story. The funniest story about it. I was a kid. I was with a friend of mine, and was studying for the baccalaureate. He was older than me, and it was his third time taking it. He didn't pass the first 2 years, right? And we're in his room, mostly smoking and doing shit. And his father walks in. His father was the funniest guy. He walks in and he looks at him. And his father would have been okay if he didn't. He dropped out of school, and got a job. And he looks at him and he starts singing Abdul Halim. He goes, لكن سماؤك ممطرة وطريقك مسدود. And he's basically saying that you're the sky is rich and raining and everything, but you're always going to hit a dead end. It's the funniest quote of Abdul Halim. But look at how much like Arabic music has been sampled in American music. Rap artists, like how many beat Jay-Z? I mean, so much. I mean, it's unbelievable. Then Madonna like steal something from Fayrouz and had to pay $2.5 million?
Wow, really?
She had to pay $2.5 million because she sampled some of her music. Because I think that had she gone through the legal routes, Fayrouz would have said no. For I can't remember which song she did it for.
Madonna's like, I wrote Kifak into. What's wrong with you? What are you talking about?
Yeah, she sampled it. So it's a rich culture,
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So before we close, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart.
We
from-
can't thank you.
I want to thank you, man, because this is like a lesson for me, and I hope everyone doesn't
This
perceive me
was-
as being, you know, I mean,
You've been awesome.
This
I
has
like.
been-
I'm learning too. You know? This is a learning. This is learning
what's fun
for me.
about the show. We all get to learn.
It's really
We're all, you
really
know.
lovely, man. I really appreciate you having
So
me.
what I think could be nice is if we close out, because we've mentioned him a few times, is Omar Effendim's Samra.
Omar Effendim, man. Omar Effendim. Now, tomorrow, in the future, and every day. Omar Effendim is one of the most incredible artists here today, Syrian. And I hope I'm lucky. We're good friends, but I hope I'm lucky to work with him one day. And any opportunity I have to work with him, I'm going to take it or give it to him or whatever it is. So yes, that will be an honor to have him.
All right. So we'll close out with Samra. Thank you so
Yeah.
Samra.
Thank you, guys. I
Thank you
appreciate
so much.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Let's hope the next one.
يامو يامو وليكي ليكي ليكي هي عم تعمل هيك يا